Hi. It's been so long. Where's my chat? Where did that box go? I don't stream it forever and my shit breaks. Whoopsies. Hold up, I'm trying to find where. Oh wait, no, it is there. Ah! It is there, and it's the bot speaking evil. Hey, you remember that time? Like how many? Like, I wouldn't doubt it if it was a year ago when I played FNAF Into the Pits. Do you guys remember that? My desktop audio is up there apparently. But yeah, do you guys remember that one time, like forever ago, I played Into the Pit? No one's here. Hold up. I should have the thing open on my phone. What am I doing? Oh, I thought I was set up. I'm not set up. Oh, I lied to myself. Yay! Okay. I think the only person's here, so that's good. No one can know it's my mistake until I inevitably have to upload this onto my channel. Hi YouTube. Hi YouTube. You don't. Oh no. Hi. Hello, my brother. You ever have YouTube Twitch channel? Maybe hold up. Where's my chat? I don't remember where my chat is. Is this here? It is. Hello. Maybe a little. I might have remembered. I might have. I don't know how else to say. I know all your mistakes. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Yeah. I exist. Yay. And as a result of that, I'm like seeing the bot freaks me out, so I'm gonna. I don't like that the first message, that the second message to appear is, I know all your mistakes. I don't like that. That's freaking me out. Hello. Hi, people. I'm just gonna move my chat, don't mind me. Move that here. Move that like this. Whatever. I exist. Hello. I have not streamed in forever. It's been over a month. Has it been 2 months? It's probably been 2 months. How long has it been? It's been at least 2 months. Hi, I exist. Ooh. I have like kind of a reason why I haven't streamed in so long. Well, timing's always a thing. And also I have been recording things to make them into actual YouTube videos. So I have not totally abandoned streaming and content creation. Lighthearted message, what do you mean it's freaking you out? I know all your mistakes? What do you mean? That's meant to freak me out. What else is it meant for? But yeah, I promise I have not totally abandoned all this. There is stuff in the works as I'm talking. Like, stuff in the works, stuff is being planned, whatever. Yeah, stuff that's in the works. I can't say, I'm not gonna say it. But I've recorded videos and stuff for my channel that inevitably I have to finish recording the parts and then edit them, and I have to figure out editing. There's so much I gotta do, but I exist. I promise. I'm doing my best. My best is just not very good. I've been dealing with school stuff, work, like, I've been doing my best. But to make up for my absence that's been so long, I'm gonna actually continue a game that I didn't continue. Because I need to do that inevitably. And also, I figured, what game, why not do FNAF? Because I love FNAF, and it's wonderful. I don't know. Yeah. It's like, silly and controversial. FNAF is controversial? What do you mean FNAF is controversial? Oh, shut up. I hate my brother. I see that message. Shush. I don't. Shut up. But yeah, I exist. I'm going to actually be revisiting and playing the FNAF Into the Pit because I kind of just did it once and then never continued. So I need to continue that. I need to progress. I'm gonna be so real because I haven't played it in so long. I don't remember how much has changed from the book to the game. Conversation? What? Why'd you say conversation? What? Huh? Why are you calling me? I realized my headphones are connected to my phone instead of my computer. Why are you calling me? Hold up, I'm gonna pick this up. I'm putting you on speaker, so behave. Why are you calling me?
I just wanted to make sure you realize that Zuby said controversial.
Oh.
I'm assuming you did it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they said conversational, not controversial.
Oops. Oops.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
I'm watching your stream.
I can tell. I hate that this bit isn't even just you, because Zombies Co is saying dyslexia strikes again. This is horrible.
Yeah. Okay. Have fun with the stream.
Bye-bye. I hate it here. I didn't even realize. Did it actually say Oh my god, it is conversational and not controversial. I need to go lay down. We know you. Shush. I don't know why I mess up on words so much. I love reading and like stories and storytelling. Why can't I read? Okay. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. It's been like 7 minutes since I've started. I'm getting off topic. I'm going to be revisiting and playing FNAF Into the Pit because I started it, never finished it. I need to finish it. I want to finish it. I want to finish it. So, and this is the game of choice for today. Oh my god, can I not open the game? Computer? I'm trying to tab back in the game and it's killing. No, I need to do this. Hold up. I'm gonna play this game one way or another. Now I can't check my OBS. This is great. I have to. Nothing's going wrong! But yeah, I'm gonna be continuing my Into the Pit gameplay, which I think I only ever did one stream of playing. I think it was one stream. I do not remember. Yeah, I think it was one stream. So I'm gonna be doing another stream actually playing this. I need to finish this game. I promise you, I have not fully abandoned streaming. There are things in the works where I want to make new images. I need to make emotes, emojis, whatever. I have stuff planned video wise and stuff's happening. I promise. I can't tell if people are talking to me because I can't. I can open my OBS. Oh my god. Wait. When can you stream a black screen for 2 hours? versus continuing the game she started. Shut up. Okay. Shush. I'm gonna actually play it. Listen. I'm ranting. You know that I rant. I talk a lot. We've covered this. We talk a lot, and I'm unmedicated every time we stream. Okay, that's gonna cause stuff. Anyways, maybe gaming is hashtag struggling to read. That's not a path. That's not a path. That's not a path I wanted to take. I want to be able. I want to do stuff with literature. What is happening? Okay. I need to continue it. I'm also kind of buying myself time because I'm like resetting up all my streaming stuff that's on my phone, like so I can actually. Why aren't you gonna work? Oh, it's the username it's asking for. What's my username, guys? That's my Discord. What's my username? What's my username, guys? Wait. Hold up. Okay, that's what I thought it was. That's what I thought it was. That's what I thought it was. Do I remember my password? Wait, I want to see the main menu more. You're moving too fast. Listen, I'm trying my best. When am I gonna get my message? Send me the code! Okay. Remember this device. Remember this device. Let me in! Let me in! Please! I'm in. Let's go. I live. I live. Let's go. Okay. Maybe later. Shush. Ah! I heard myself. Okay. I'm actually ready. I'm prepared for once. Trust. Okay. I'm gonna actually play the game that I said I would play. There we go. Oh my. It's been over like 4 months since I've. 4 months ago was when I streamed this game, guys. How do we feel? How do we feel, guys? How do we? Jeez. Okay, how do we feel? Oh shoot, you guys can hear the game, right? I forgot to check if you guys can hear the game. I'm gonna hope. Okay, wait. What's my goal? Investigate the scream. I don't want to. I don't want to. Oh, I forgot that there's a stupid. Getting real sick of seeing these guys everywhere. I don't remember where I left off, so I could be in a really bad situation and I'm not gonna know. What way did the scream come from? What way did the scream come from? I'm gonna assume in there. I see nothing has changed. 11 minutes, no game. Shush. I'm gonna assume. I'm gonna assume that was the scream. What if I leave? What if I just leave? What if I just leave? I didn't think I'd be able to just actually leave. Wait. I didn't think they'd let me leave. I was doing that for a bit. Hey, the scream is from the real world, guys, right? It's from the current now time, yeah? This is where the scream's from? Yeah, this is where the scream's from, guys. I don't remember any of the controls for this game. Okay. Possum! If that's them, I bet they're in trouble. Okay, I bet they're in trouble. Okay, what do I have? Tradable item. What? Tradable huh? Huh? This is what happens when I don't play a game for like months on and I have to rediscover everything I rope. Oh wait, is the game gonna have me hang him instead of him getting tangled up and hanging himself? It's gonna make no sense if you guys have not like read the book, or maybe if they actually do have him hang himself by accident. I really don't want to go back. Yeah, what if I just what's wrong with a single mom? What's wrong with having a single mom? Oh, I should go save my dad. Okay. I don't like this. He's gonna be where the bitch is. He's gonna be where the motherfucker is, and I don't want to go there. Okay. How do I crouch? Wait. There was a control for crouch, and I don't remember what my controls were. How do I? Shift control. What are my? Oh, it's probably E to go under. Okay. It is E to go under. Okay. This is fine. This is fine. Oh, he's gone. Oh, he's gone. I think that's worse. I think that's worse. I think that's worse that he's gone. I don't like that. I think that's worse. It's gotta be in here, aren't you? Is that new? I don't think that's new, but I can't tell if that's new. I feel like it's gonna Weeping Angel me. I don't like that. Please don't Weeping Angel me. I don't like that at all. Oh god, stay away from me. Please. Oh, I don't like that. I do not like that one bit. But yeah, the problem is I don't remember what has or hasn't changed. Oh. Okay. Okay, where could the scream come from? It's not over there. Is it employees only area? It's, someone might be in here actually. Oh my god. Laughing. This is a picture of my family on vacation. Dad normally carries this on him. I'm not sure if he's. Can I hide while I look at this? Well, will they kill me if I look at my inventory real quick? I'm the inventory master. Can I? I can't look at my inventory. Oh. Dad took this picture of me and Mom on our last beach trip. Dad and I got so sunburnt that Mom kept calling us a pair of lobsters. We should have reapplied to sunscreen like she said, but Dad and I were too busy swimming to remember. How old is this photo? Not sure how Mom puts up with us sometimes. I don't know. I just realized my favorite streamer is streaming, and I could be watching that instead. I already started. I already started. I gotta continue streaming. I'll be back. I'll be back for that. Okay. Not sure. I'm gonna post those sometimes. Oh, I don't remember. Oh! I look off. I look wrong. Dad always takes photos of me on the first day of school. It's kind of embarrassing, but I think it makes him happy. He wasn't able to take a photo of my first day this year. Oh no! Oswald! The lucky rabbit! He's getting hunted by a rabbit who's not very lucky! That means I was spotted. 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 Where do I hide? Oh, I'm spotted. He's definitely found me. He definitely is coming for me. Oh god, don't I... Hey, what am I doing again? Oh, I have to just wait until he leaves. That's great. That's great. Hey dude. Please don't kill me. The bitch leaves! Yes! Alright. Alright. Okay. Investigate the screen. I'm gonna avoid where he is. Because that feels like... Hey! Why did I just... Why? Hey, Florian, no, trust you're safe. I don't feel very safe. I don't feel very safe. Am I safe in here, guys? I forgot this is a hiding spot. No, I was joking. What? Okay. See if you ask nicely. Is that a phone? That is a phone. I'm gonna have to pick up the phone. What did I just trigger? Oh! Sorry, I'll leave. Oh, wait, that's what I was meant to do? Find a way to lure the bear. It's gonna be a sound mechanic. Do I have to get him into the hall? Oh, this is not the hall. What am I doing? Oh, but there's something over here, isn't there? No? There's a hat. Does he want to put the hat? Did your birthday boy want to put the hat? This door is locked. Why did that sound like the Scooby-Doo laugh? The ree! I can't do it. Oh wait, I can do some stuff? Oh, I have a token! What is this game? Oh! Oh no! I can't move! Ah! Oh, I'm horrible at these. Can I give up? Please? That's in the right spot. Nothing else is, though. Oh! Oh, wait, I don't have to get everything! Oh, you fucker! I'm not making it. I'm not making it. I'm not making it. Oh, that didn't make it. I still have time? I thought I didn't have time anymore. What? Okay, this has to go down. What? I didn't realize I could just leave. Aw, man. I didn't realize I could just leave. And my father dropped off a kitty cat. Hello, kitty cat. Get over here. Roxy! Roxy! I don't have food, I just realized. Oh. Roxy is within the premises, so mayhaps she shall come to me. Oh, man. Yeah, I absolutely asked those games. Okay, I gotta lure Freddy out. Which is gonna be a stupid sound mechanic, which oh, those stress me out so badly. Okay. Who saw me? Who saw me? Let me in! Of course it was you! Okay. I don't know what to say. Okay, I guess he is there. Sure. My flashlight has a battery?! What the fuck? Okay, I know where the scream is. I'm leaving! Fuck that! Fuck that! Fuck that! No! I love that I can just leave. I can just leave, and that's like the funniest thing to me. Aw, what do you mean? Aw. Is there saving? Can I like temporarily save and see what happens if I just leave? What if I just... Oh, that's not fucking happening. Jinx! That's kitty cat, right? I don't think he wanted to play hide and seek. I don't want to play hide and seek! Get him away from me! I'm gonna call the police! Actually, wait, if I remember right, this is the time where it was like, do you know where kids are at night? The tapeworm ball pit. Do not call it that. Oh god. Do not Don't mind me. Don't mind me, sir. So I have to lure him out somehow. If I just, like, sneak on by, do you think he'll notice? No? Thank God. So okay. Give me this. Okay, I have the family photo. It's the same door, right? No? I'm gonna hide in here. I'm just gonna hide in here. What now? What then? What then? What then? Hi! Hello, sir! Hello, sir! Please leave! Please leave! I forget which one of these is what is which, so I'm not gonna press anything! What's in? No! Did it ban you? Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait, what did it say? What did it say? Oh, it was... Hi. I live for once. I can't do anything because this motherfucker is out there. I'm also continuing a game for. That was stupid. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Oh, it didn't even take me out. Oh, hello, sir. Yeah. I don't think you were around of this before it. This is a game where I streamed once, like 4 months ago, and then never did again. So I need to finish it, but I'm really stupid. But I don't want to look up a tutorial. I don't think I did last time. Did I? Oh god, dude. I don't think I did. I don't think I did. Is she gone? Can I go back to where I was? Okay, she's gone. Continuing a game for the first time ever. Shut. I've continued games before. I just haven't finished them. Okay, I think the screen's here. Yep, here's Freddy. Okay. Here's Freddy. Hi, Freddy. And you're once a monster. I'm trying to improve that considering, you know what. I'm gonna try and improve that. That's why I'm doing this again, because we have the day today. Okay, find a way to lower the bear. All I can think is the sound mechanic in the hall. I was about to ask if you guys remember any other sound mechanic, but I haven't streamed this in literal months. No one's gonna fucking remember that shit. I only ever beat 2 games. That's real. Wait. Has it... I want to save. I think I'm wrong. I think I haven't played this game in over a year. Cause wait, is it, I'm overthinking the year. Hold up, I need to check the year. What year is it? What year is it? What year is it? Oh my god, I'm wrong about the year. The SP is starting on it. That's why I'm doing this again. That's why I'm trying to start streaming it and whatever again. You made a distraction. I know I have to do that, but I don't know where I have to make a distraction. Also, I was wrong. I haven't played this game for over a year. Because the last time I played it was in 2024. Oh no! I'm really bad at this, guys. Oh yeah, you make a distraction somewhere. I'm like, the only distraction that comes to my mind right now is in the hallway where everyone is. Is this a sound? Are you a sound mechanic? Something else in this presence. Hope for the decorations. Otherwise, some kids can have the worst birthday ever. Okay, there's no sound gimmick there. Bro, my brain's still in, like, I don't know why I still thought 2025. I'm sorry, I got lost. Okay, where are any sound mechanics? Are you a sound mechanic? No, but you're a game. Oh, girl, don't judge me! Don't judge me! Don't oh-girl me! Okay. I have to find a sound mechanic that can trigger Freddy. Hi, kitty. Hi, Roxy. Are you gonna join the scream? Pizza flavors. Can I just leave? What if I leave now? I so badly wish I could choose when to save, because what if I just leave now? What then? Okay. I don't want to go in the main hall, because that's where everyone is. And I need to make a sound to lure out Freddy without getting everyone on my ass. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me, game. Do not laugh at me. See, this is the only something I can think of, but I don't think it's... Yeah! Ah! Get away! Get away, you Charlotte! Get away, you Harleton! Ah! You didn't hear that. I'm going back here because it's safe. I'm going back here because it's relatively safe, I think. Okay. What is this? Oh. Hey, Dad's name tag from work is here. I don't remember where Dad works. Where does Dad work? Does Dad have a job? Is my father employed? Textbook. Oh, sketchbook says to pay the fireworks kid a visit at the library. So does that mean I leave? The sketchbook said the bear hates bright flashes of light. I think it's time I pay the firecracker kid a visit to the library. So does that mean what do you mean help? What did I? There's a delay. What did I say that required help? Hold up. Was it my dad having a job? Why is my stuff getting wait, hold up. Your stream lagged and all I hear is screaming. Okay, but like, can I stop this bot from muting people when they all do all caps? Because I type all caps. What? I need to fix that now. Hold up. Okay, I cannot have this bot because this bot kills my friends. Hey, how do I? Oh, you're. how do I kill off a bot? Do I ban you? What if I ban the bot? Nope, that didn't do anything. I got a call. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of that bot. Because apparently he just banned you or something.
Yeah, it banned me from chatting for like 9
That's
minutes.
so stupid. That's so. How do I get rid of this guy? How do I kill this guy off? How do I get rid of this guy? How do I get rid of this guy? I'm like, this is an actual issue. How do I get rid of this guy?
I have no clue.
I think a while ago someone's like, oh yeah, he can help you with people being rude or weird. All he's done for me is stop people from using caps, which I use caps so often. How do I kill this guy?
Yeah.
How do I Nightbot, how do I kill you? Can I kill you? There's ban. I don't know if banning's what I want.
I don't think so.
Oh, unmod.
Oh, yeah, that would do it.
Unmod. Unmod. Can you try typing, see if that fixes it?
Yeah, I'm still on timeout.
Why? Can I get rid of timeout? Hold up. How to search for it, guys? Hold up. This is going great. This is going great. Okay. Overwrite. Where is this? How do I just hear the tense, like, game in my ears.
Oh, shit.
Is it unbanned? Did you get banned?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna do it anyways.
Okay.
I know what I'm doing, trust. Unban. Mr. Frog. Not Mr. Frog. Wrong person. Wrong Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Clownza. I forgot you have a Mr. in your username. I think I removed it.
Change it later.
I think I removed it. Can you talk?
Okay, let me try. Yes, I can.
You can't. Okay. I fixed that. I got rid of that issue. Cause that's real fucking annoying. That's real fucking annoying. I didn't know it would do that. I hate that. Okay, that guy's gone. I just gotta figure something else out for people being rude or whatever. Welcome back. I got rid of, I want to say the witch, but that doesn't work. Fix the cat problem. Okay. I just did. There's more than that. Ah! What? I got rid of that guy. What? How do I put this guy down? How do I put this guy down? Nightbot, can I kill you? Can I put you down, please? How do I put you down? Do I have to block? How do I put this guy down? I need to kill him like a dead dog. I'm sorry, that was too far. I cannot be fixing when I'm done dying. That's so fair. I'm just like, do I have to block it? Do I have to ban it? Be back soon. See you later. Have fun. I'm gonna ban it. Hope that does something. Cause that's real fucking annoying if my friends or my people who watch my streams are just having a good time and they're like, hey, shut the fuck up. Ban! Hello? Don't do that. It also feels so hypocritical to be like, stop spamming caps. I spam caps. When I'm excited, I will just message in full caps to my friend. It's not that big of an issue. Hopefully me banning them fixes it. Hopefully. If not, I'll cry. I don't know. I need to continue the game. Bro, you good? What did I do? Why are you saying bro? What did I do? This is bullying. It is! We need to bring back the witch trials just for these bats! I'm so sorry. Do I have to put it like a preface warning whenever someone tries to join that I get loud? Do I have to put that? I'm so glad my mom's not home. She'd be so confused. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna play the game and hopefully I'll see anything if something goes wrong. Okay. Find a way to lure the bear. I think I have to go home because the sketchbook says the bear hates bright flashes of light. I think it's time I pay the firecracker kid over there at the library. So that's at home. That's in my world. So I think I have to leave. I think I gotta leave. I think I gotta go home. Go take a nap, probably. What is that? What was 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 that? Oh, you can talk in caps now? Nice! How are you? La, la, la. Alright, I'm so glad that worked out because I genuinely did not know what the fuck was happening. Okay. Don't kill me, rabbit. Stop. Okay. I don't know what to say. Okay, this works. Okay, you haven't gotten banned yet, so I think we're good. I think we're good. And I'll figure out something later. Okay, find a way to load the bear. I think I need to head home. I do think I need to head to the library and head home. Like, get the fuck out of here. I think I need to. Can I get in here? Let me in. I can? Since fucking when? When can I get in here? Hello? There's a huge piece of nobody unlocked inside. Can I just, like, snoop around his building? This is my building now! I probably have been here before. I just can't remember for the life of me. Oh my god. Can I book your nose? That's a sad chair. I want to go in there. I want to go in there. I want to go in there. Why'd you ban it? Why'd you block it off from me? I want to go in there. Alright, I think I want to play this game! Okay, he's right here. I want to play this game! Okay, whatever. I'll leave, I guess. Because it's like 4 in the morning or something, isn't it? Okay. Find a way to lure the bear. So I think, how do I get to the... How do I leave? Library! Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to the library in this game. Whoopsies. Whoopsies! My bad! Is it you? Okay, it's gotta be you. Because I think you have a... Hey, fire... I don't know his name. He doesn't have a name. He just... Hey, Firecracker Kid. Oh, Jet. Still dig that name. You still want to trade for one? Give me a character you associate with me. It can be from anything. You know who I'm gonna say. You know who I'm gonna say. You still want to trade for one? Yeah, I have this. What do I... Toy Freddy? Oh, nice. You got yourself a trade. Awesome, thanks. Pleasure doing business with you. Okay. Hello, lady? Oswald, I didn't know you'd be here. Oh, hey, just heading out, actually. Are you alright? You don't look so good. Oh, your dad... Oh, your dad's here. I guess it's a goodbye for now. See you tomorrow, Oswald. Wait, Gabrielle! Gabrielle? He just kind of took me. It's like... He just kind of took me. Find a way to escape. Where's my cat? Where's my cat? Where's my cat? I have a cat. Where's my cat? I didn't know I had a cat. I had a cat. Where did my cat go? I want to see my cat. Hello? I just read my drawings. Teacher's out to sketch them right now. No, I'll sketch it. Trust. Hammered shut. Don't I have a hammer? Okay. Yeah, I saw that pretty much all that. That was very cool. I'm not gonna make a sound. I don't. Say it. 16 Macaque from Lego Monkey Kid. You know why. You're so... That's literally who you are when you pop up my stream. And you chose that. Yes. Why did I try and go in that room? I was like, oh, he's out. Let me go in there, sir. Why did I try that? What am I doing? Okay. So he's gonna immediately pop out of that door, which is... so I can't get too close. I don't want that. Okay. Is there anything for me? Some pictures of my family. Mom and dad at Halloween. Grandma holding me as a baby. Aww. I feel like all those like chubby babies. I don't know why. Mom keeps her medical scrubs in here. Why in the hallway and not in her room? I had another door shut. I don't like that. Okay, that's a sound thing. That's a sound cue. Why can't I hide under the table? That's such bullshit. Okay, I need to be quiet. I need to be quiet. He's gonna be there. 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 Oh, Jinx! There's a picture of Grandma on the shelf. She still lives nearby. My parents don't want us to move far away from her. One of the reasons we stay on Saturday Cat. Hey, no, I made a cloud to PNG. Send it to me then! Send it to me! Oh, kitty cat! Oh, kitty cat, come now! I want to pet the kitty cat. I know my kitty cat. That's my real life kitty cat. What the fuck? What do you have, Roxy? She's probably so confused why I'm just yelling about cats. I think your name's Jinx, right? Is it Jinx? Are you Jinx? Are you Jinx? Where's achievements? Jinx! Hi, Jinx! Hi, baby! I love this cat. I love this cat. This is my favorite character, guys. It's not gonna be. It won't budge. It's gonna through the barricade from the outside. That's so suspicious. That's so fucking suspicious. Oh wow, it might be a little late, but let's go see what my neighbors are doing. Why is their house barricaded up? That's so suspicious. It's gonna have me go to the door. I'm not going that way. I'm not going that way. I'll go this way. He's so in this room. He's so in this room. Fuck it. Fuck it, whatever. Alright, he's like... We're going in loops, so I gotta... No, I thought that was Jinx. That's a mouse. Can I take that? I didn't think that was a second. I thought I was supposed to say in front of another way. I need to hide! What are you on about? I thought I'd pick that up and use it as like a weapon. I didn't think that'd be a sound cue. I didn't think that'd be a sound cue. Please don't come up here. Or not up here, I'm in the... I love Jinx. Jinx is not my favorite FNAF character. I have a few. Jinx is not up there though. I didn't know I loved her as much as I do. I love Jinx. I think my favorite book character is Sarah from To Be Beautiful, which I believe is the second short story in the Into the Pit book. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. Shut up and hide! He saw me. He saw me. He saw me. He saw me. I'm dead. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Kitty. Kitty. Hi, baby. The cat in my room, by the way, is the one that's higher up on the side of me. The black and white one. She's adorable. It's precious. I love her. I think I need to get into the room that he's currently idling in, so I'm going to go grab a snack, low-key. So I'll be right back.
Not burning.
Hmm? I'm back. Hi. I come back. I just see you're cooked. I hate the message lag. Okay, fuck you, I guess. Mods that I don't think I have. Kill this guy. I don't trust that. I want to go back. It's my footsteps. Oh, he's coming. He's coming this way. Hi, Jinx. Hi, Jinxie Boo. Oh, baby. Okay, I'm gonna head back. Ooh, the attic. Isn't there an attic? There is an attic. I'm gonna go up to the attic. Mom used to rock me when I was a baby. I don't. What do I have that I can use? I can't use that here. Rope? I have a rope. I should be strong enough. Oh shit! Oh shit! I didn't think that was actually a solution. Oh damn! All right, let's go to cafeteria. Not cafeteria. Hello, the pizzeria. Blech. Okay. Go to the ball pit. Do I have to? I really don't. I would really rather. Hey, don't mind me. Don't mind me while I'm coming at like 10 at night. Don't mind me. Don't mind me, bro. Has it ever hit anyone? Like, it's just hitting me. I might have thought some past that I don't know. Into the Pit's kind of like just a FNAF version of Coraline. Like, we're bored of our life. We're bored of where we are. We don't, like, know anyone. Because during the summer, at least. Find a way to lure the bear. What did I have to lure the bear with again? And, like, we end up going to, like, a parallel dimension or time or a parallel something. We end up having back like a chiropractor? Is that what that word is? I think that's what that is. I'm gonna say that's what that is. Welcome back. I have TNT! I can make a bomb! No, because, like, we're this kid, and yes, it's because it's summer. We're in this town where we have, like, no friends. And so we're, like, bored. And so we go to this other reality or world or whatever to, like, fulfill that fun. And in the books, I forget if it's in the game. In the books, we can go there like for a day or two and nothing goes wrong. And then like our third time we go there. I'm talking about the book for the game, not the book for Coraline. Do not make a bomb. Why not? Why? We go to alternate reality and things are fun and we have a great time. You did in fact type sob. We go to another reality. It's great. We have a great time, and then things go absolutely wrong. And then we go back to our reality. One of our parents are just not there or different. And so we have to find a way to save them in that original alternate reality time we went to. I might be grasping at straws. I don't fucking know. I need to rewatch Coraline. I fucking love Coraline. I've read the book and the movie. I love it. Okay, find a way to lure the... So I have... Don't mind me. Don't mind me, rabbit. I'm just gonna make my way around, making my way downtown, walking fast. I can't run, anyone else to hear me. This is the wrong door! I went in the wrong door. Oh no. Okay, so I have, like, it says firecracker. Am I insane? Is that not just like dynamite sticks? Don't die. It's gonna happen eventually. Is that not straight up like dynamite sticks though? Why does Jet, who I think is our grade, and I mean like middle school, why does this kid just have explosives? I'm concerned. Okay. Alright, let's go through. I don't know how I meant to use the explosives to lure him out without getting myself killed though. That's the thing. You need the dynamite to lure the bear. No, duh, but what am I gonna do? Blow up the entire... I heard something, I don't like that. Okay, fuck it. No, I don't know why the little... Yeah, no, why did that kid just have TNT? Okay. I'm just blowing up the bear! Hello? What? You're not my dad! Oh god, Balloon Boy is terrifying. Oh no, the mini Ritos! Oh god, what's it called? The story when like the guy goes to his night shift and every day Minrietas just invade his body. Is that what's gonna happen to me? Maybe if I find a door. I can't remember what that's for because timing delay. Hey kid. Hey kid. Here. They're close. What? Who? The cameras. Check the cameras. I see Balloon Boy. I gotta take the Ritos. Oh hi little kid. Explode the bear. I love this. Okay, check the cameras. Am I just playing FNAF? Okay. I don't want to do this. Guys, I can't see shit. I actually can't see shit. What am I meant to see? Him, I guess. Follow me. We have to get out of here. Oh, I can't. They're still out there. I need to get away from here. Yeah, fuck you, kid. Okay, distract the creature with what? With what? That's our hint. Please, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Please. The creepy yellow rabbit is too close to the room. I need to lure it away with the noise. Oh my god, cause yeah, this bit is not in the actual book, if I remember right. Am I just playing like alternate FNAF 4? I have to lure a Bonnie animatronic that was related to murders away from the office I'm in. Am I just playing FNAF 4? Okay. Sticky head? Hello?
Now, I can't imagine you stay there very late at night, so I guess you don't need to worry about the whole animatronic situation.
I'm 10 years old.
If you really have nothing to do after work and want to stay a little bit longer, play some games in the arcade.
Oh, fuck off.
Not every machine works, though.
That got me a little. It has to be. I have to have a hiding spot, though. I feel like I have to have a hiding spot. Hey, Sebastian's in his locker. Ooh, thank you. Thank you, game. I am tiny. Hello. I am. Wait, there's something else. My dad's wedding ring. Hello. My dad's wedding ring is in here. I need to give them back to dad. What? Okay, I got all the clues. There was 5 clues. Maybe you can distract with that. I don't know what that is. Then die? I don't want... My only thought is I feel like I have to press this button to make a sound because it has the sound cue. But if it's not what I meant to do, I don't have anywhere to... I'm gonna do it. Oh. I probably shouldn't call attention to myself. Then why is this here? Okay. Distract the creatures. Okay, so I have to make sound. I have to... It did look like a bad word. That's why I did not read it in fear that it was, because I'm a little pussy. Okay, I need to get the rabbit away from where I was. I don't know where he is currently. He also does rounds. He's probably gone by now anyways, but... Only sound cue thing I can think of is in this hallway here. Can you leave? Maybe the alert. It's probably an alert. Oh, what? Sticky hand? I can't use that here. Wait, I also I can use token? I can use that here. What do I use? A screwdriver? Can't use that here. What do I can't use that here. What do I use? I'm gonna try every single thing I have because it implies that I might be able to use something here. No! Where'd she go? I just kind of yelled and ran in silence. Ah! Fuck off! Fuck off! Okay. She's just actually gone. That kid's dead. That kid's so dead. Alright, what am I looking at? I can see now? Oh my god, he was nowhere near... He was in Camp 4. He was nowhere near me. Okay, what am I looking for? Camp... He's just taking her. He's just straight up taking her. Can I go to the next, like, cam 1? Where is it taking her? I don't know! Look for the- I don't want to look for the kid! I'm a kid! Leave me alone! I'm gonna have to use a sound cue, and that's gonna be like a really tight squeeze situation. I feel like it's scaring me. Okay, look for the kid. It looks like he went down this way. I'm not going that way! Ooh, no thank you. No thank you. Okay, this is why I had the bot. This is why I had the bot. Yeah, I'm moving over to my thing. Hold up. I'm moving over. Ban. That's why I had that, like, thing. That's why I had the, like, bot thing, because that would ban them for me, or that would keep them away. Sorry. That's why I had that little guy that was just, that wasn't being an... The one that would mute you, I had him because he would ban these. You try to change settings. What are the settings? Because right now the settings are, hey, if someone talks loud, they're dead. Right now the settings are, hey, oh, you're talking on caps, you're dead. Should I just bring it? I might just bring him back and then deal with those all later. How do I bring him back? I can get rid of the bots. That's true, actually. You do, in fact, stream. I might do that. Hold on. And I do. I'm trusting you. I'll have you after stream because I use that. Thank you so much, bro. Hold up. Let me actually get to my Switch to be able to do that. Okay. Sorry, I was reading. Where the fuck is my? Hello. Where is my stream? Where is my stream? Hold up. I'm losing. Okay, there it is. There it is. I'm gonna trust you, because I think you're the only one. You are the only one here to see that message. Well, at least we know that no one was in risk of getting banned. Okay, how do I do that? Hold up. I'm an amazing mod, I swear. I'm gonna trust you. At least no one was at risk of getting scammed, because it's only you here. Not even my brother stayed. Not even. It's just. That's funny. It's telling me. Okay. If anything comes in, kill them. I don't know. Okay. I waited too long just waiting to try to fix that. The kid's not gonna be there anymore. Okay. It went this way. I know she's in here. She's in here, isn't she? Won't budge. The lock's pretty old, though I bet I'm gonna smash it. I need to get that girl up before she freezes. Find out. I have keys, don't I? I have various keys. What are we on about? Okay. Oh, there's probably keys back. Your brother will return. Who knows? Don't mind me, good sir. Don't mind me, good bitch. Okay. I feel like there's gonna be a key in the office or back here. I can't think of where else there would be a key. Like, okay, return apart. I'm so good I moved before I accidentally pressed the button to trigger that. Oh my god, I'm so good. Hate you! Yay! Did I not go in here? Oh, I did. Okay. I'm gonna go here, because this is closer to the office. I feel like the office is gonna have the key that I need. That's all I can think of. I don't like that it went all dark. I don't like that. Because I feel like the office makes the most sense to have a key for around the building. I thought I had a key. Maybe she assumed not gonna lie to you. That's so fair. Do I check? Why? Do I get a... How do I don't know. How do I... Okay. I can't open it, but I bet I can find it. Smash it up if I find the right tool. I have a key! Oh, the thing jammed the freezer handle. I'm so stupid. Oh my god. What am I doing? I thought you had a key. Shush. I have 2 different keys. I don't like. We don't have. There's no basement. What basement? What are we on about with a basement? Okay, whatever. Alright. I have friends me to smash whatever's jamming it instead of a key. Can't wait for you to hit affiliate. I don't think that's gonna happen, bro. Do not think that's gonna happen. Okay, I need to find something. Again, are you have it? Okay, I don't know. Thought it would change. Okay, I need to find something big enough to smash this thing, and then I'll be good. April follows in a few more streams. I do need to get back on stream. That's why I'm low-key doing it. Use explosives to defrost it. That's not how that works. Also, I only had one explosive. Okay. Use explosives to defrost it. April follows in a few more streams. I do need to get back on streaming. That's why what is this? Hello, anyone here? Maybe they hung up. Or you didn't call anyone, dumbass. Do not mind me, yellow one. I don't know. I'm just gonna follow him. Hey, can you guide me to the answer, please? I'm really stupid. I need an answer. Can you guide me? I don't like that he stopped. I do not like that he stopped. Okay. I'm gonna assume bro saw me. I'm gonna assume that's what that was. I'm like, I don't know what's... I don't have anything that can break it, or else it would have done the stupid, like, hey, which item can you use to break it? What? Okay. I don't know why that just, like, maybe... Hello? So he has access to the office where I need to be. That's great. He sees you. No, he doesn't. No, he didn't. I'm good. I live. I lived. Okay. It's. Oh, I wanted to check there anyways. He got you. No, he didn't. Stop. Scientific empire. Okay. So all I could think. Why was me tripping so loud? All I can think is it's gotta be backstage. Because I need something light enough that my character can lift it, but... Oh, I've already read that before. I need something light enough that my character can lift it, but it's heavy enough so that it, like, can break stuff. Which is gonna be a bit of an issue. Let's hope it stays broken forever. I saw what that did. Why did I do that? I saw that there was the sound trigger, like a thing, and I consciously was like, oh yeah, I should press that. What? What am I on about? What am I on about? He's gonna come here, so I have to wait for him to come here, and so I'm just gonna wait in the vents and. Or maybe he's not. Maybe I'm him and I get to live. Okay, do I use... Get me out of here! Get me out of here! Or maybe he does see me. Okay. That's great. That's so good. That's so good. That's fine. How's everyone's day been? I don't know. Oh, you're still alive. Oh, it sent me all the way back here. Oh, well, this I know what I gotta do. Okay, let's go get to the stupid fucking music man. No, he's not here. He is not in this game. Tragic, truly tragic. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's get the fuck out of here. I don't like how that poster has their facial features missing. I don't like that. Okay, the kids. I got hiccups. No. Okay. No, where'd you go? Why did that get me again? Why did that get me again? I knew I would get jump scared by that. Why did it get me again? Oh my god. Oh, I'm so stupid. Okay. This is great. Okay, check the cameras. Oh my god, I wonder what's up. Where's he taking her? Oh my god! She's going like... Not willingly. I don't want to say willingly. But she is not struggling as much as she could be. Where is it taking her? To her fucking death. Alright, father's wedding ring. Shut up. Shut up, me. Shut up, me. Take dad's wedding ring. He's gonna want that or something. I don't know. I assume he's gonna want his wedding ring back. Okay, she's going to... Go away! Why is my default straight to the vent? Straight to the vent. Hello? Oh, you're in here. Hello, sir. How you doing? What? How has your day been? How has your day been, sir? Goodbye! Fuck off! Ooh. Ooh, that was not good. Did you say stupid bitch? He probably didn't, but I think that's really fucking funny if all that he says that is intelligible is stupid bitch. You can't say that about me, it's mean. I'm like 5, I don't know. How much is in here? And that was a sound cue, so I'm good. Why am I going back? Let me out! Let me out! Let me out! Okay. I'm gonna have to go backstage. I'm sure gonna be able to... Can I get that? No. See, is that to me or a character in the game? I can't tell. Why are you still here? Go away! No one wants you here! Okay. That's a hiding spot, there's nothing in there. I do want to take the token. Oh, wait, token slot? What? Token slot? Hello? Oh, that's the game? Is it for this game? First 10, then 5. I don't remember how old this kid is. I don't remember how old this kid is. I haven't read this book in a while. And I have no clue if they actually say it in this. Okay. Is this where I need to get her out? Like, hit the thing with the token slot? It's metal. It's bound to do the job. She's gonna be dead as soon as I get her, though. Why is it so dark? I literally do not know. This is just the game brightness. Or it's not, but I'm like, gosh, golly gee willikers. Okay. Okay. Is that... Why do I have the token slot if it's not to get her out? What? Shut up, girl. Get me out of here! Get me out of here! I'm so dead. I'm so fucking dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. He saw me. He saw me. He has to have seen me. No? Did he not see me? Why didn't he see me? Why didn't he see me? Hello? Okay, but undoubtedly, that looks like... This is funny. Undoubtedly, though, like, the slot has to be for something. So it has to allow some... It's not the one back there. I tried it, I think. It has to allow some machine to work. And I'd love to go check, but I kinda can't, because this fucker's here. Oh, Jesus. Okay. He's going that way. What if I just, like, slip on the opposite way? What if I just, like... Excuse me? Don't mind me! Don't mind me! Why can't I just use this? It's right here! Why? Okay, game. Okay, game. Okay, Fazbears. Alright, so I thought that I could have used the token thing to, like, break it, because, like, that's metal. But whatever. I gotta do something with the game. Probably. Gotta find a game that doesn't work. Is it this one? Oh shit! I need this to break it. Where are you keeping that hammer? Perfect for smashing. Where am I keeping that? What the fuck? Well, I don't know what I'd do with the fucking token slot now, but I have a weapon. Oh my god, guys! I'm finally part of Heather's. I have my mallet that I can. I have my mallet so that I can be Veronica. Oh my god, guys! Heather. What the fuck? Okay. She's so dead. By how long to me, she's so dead. And oh. Did I really get it? Because that took me. She's dead. She is actually dead. I think he ate it. Yes. She's so fucking dead. What are you doing, Oswald? That's a corpse. Oh, she's not dead. Jesus, hurt your eyes. Oh, she's gone. You saved me. Run to the exit before. Oh. Well, she knew what to do. She knew. Oh, hello? E! Get away from me! Stop! Heather, and someone! You got in here. I don't like that. This just keeps getting worse and worse. This ends tomorrow. This ends tomorrow. I'm done with this for today. Day 5! 5 minutes and oh. Is that what's her name? Mrs. Applegate from kindergarten? What the fuck is the teacher's name? Oh. That's not my teacher. I don't want to yell. He tripped, really. No! Go to the ball pit. Where's my cat? Did I sleep all day? I'm running out of time. No more school. No more distractions. I'm bringing Dad home. Where is my cat? Dad, come away. I need to... Normally they say this ends now, but you know, it's fine. Guys, I think this ends now. Where the fuck is my cat? I want my cat. I love my cat. What is that sign meant to be? Is my cat in here? I want to see my cat. Where's my cat? Where is the cat? I need to see the cat. I need to see my little emotional support friend. Where's the cat? Where is the cat? Where's the cat? Where is the cat? Where is the cat? I have... That's a rat, not a cat. I have priorities, guys, if you can't. Where's the cat? No, where's Cheeks? Where's Cheeks? Where's my baby? I don't like that. He's probably home, isn't he? That fucker. Kitty, kitty, kitty. Where's the kitty? Where's the kitty? Did he kill the cat? I can't remember if the cat dies in the book, and I'm really scared that the cat does die in the book. Where's my cat? Where's the cat? No. Are you up here, kid? I can't. Where's the cat? No. I want to see the cat. I want the kitty. Oh, I want the kitty cat. This is stupid. This is a stupid game. A stupid game. This is a stupid game. Okay. Let's go to the pizzeria, I guess. Guys, this ends now, or some shit. I don't fucking know. Oh, hello? When I go in there, I'm not sure I'll come back out. But I guess I'm as ready as I'll ever be. And they'll stay with us! Why is my thought? Okay, let's go to reference. Someone get the Ghostbusters on this shit. I can't. He'll come back, he always does. Okay, fuck you. Okay, go to the ball pit. What if I don't want... Why is Jeff gone? I don't like Jeff being gone. I feel like that unnerves me so much more. I don't like that one bit. Okay, let's go to the ball pit. Who the fuck? Who is this bald man? Hello? Yeah, don't mind me. That's the employer. Oh wait, I didn't mean to go there. I'll make my own pizza, guys. I really hope that girl like got away. I don't know. I'm assuming she did. What? Why is it locked? Don't worry, I have a key. Of all the times for Jeff to actually lock this door. Better hope I find him. Need another FNAF game like this. Honestly, fair. There's definitely a fan games like it. I know for that for a fact. Also, I'm pretty sure, unless I visualized it wrong, there wasn't a separate door Why did you say goddamn? What did I do? What did I do? This text delay. What did I do? But I don't know. I'm pretty sure if I remember the book, it was never stated that the ball pit was in a whole separate room. So I don't. Oh, I have to look for Jeff. Can I get in the employees room? Is that room locked? Is he in here? I don't know why you said goddamn, because I don't know what I said, because it's text delay. What did I do? What did I do? Oh, bro is demolishing that pizza. I didn't even see that message. How? I didn't even see that bro's demolishing the pizza. I'm so sorry. Bro's just hungry. What do you want about? Bro's just a little hungry. Bro's just a little hungry. Listen. We've all been there. Is he You know what? Him playing solitaire is kinda real. Can I go in the box? Hey, sir. Why right now does he remind me of the scientist guy from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? I don't remember his name. What you doing there, Jeff? What's it look like, kid? I'm working. Yeah. What are you doing barging in my office? I need to get the ball. I mean, I left my jacket in the room with the ball, but I'm wearing my jacket. I'm actively wearing my jacket. What are you on about? I mean, I left my jacket in the room with the ball pit the other day, and can you let me in there? Ah, nice try, kid. You're wearing the exact same jacket you wore when you went in. That's what I'm fucking saying! Flint Lockwood! Thank you! I forgot his name! No, I'm not. This is my backup jacket. The other one has my own wallet. I kind of need it to buy pizza. Oh yeah, that's pretty important. Here, take the key, but don't go playing around the ball pit again. I promise I'll stay out of there as soon as I'm done. Never want to see that thing again, anyways. That gross, huh? You have no idea. Okay. Stay. I got pink eye. Ooh. I don't like this. Okay. The fact that that's here in the real one and then not in the fake one. Thanks, game. Hey guy, let me back in, let me in! I'm dead. Where did the man go? Where did the bald man go? Okay. Oh, I didn't realize I had to spam it. Let me in! This ends tomorrow. I'm done with this. Oh, my God! Fall into your hands, I commend my spirit. They're laughing at me. Why have you forsaken me? In your arms forsaken me. In your hand forsaken me. I don't remember the lyrics. Why did I look behind? I can't go to the front. Oh God, there's one of these. Leave me alone. Oh my God, he peeked out like the book cover. Oh my God, he did! I don't know. Okay. Let's just, so wait, why, I guess I couldn't travel because he was there? Oh God, my dad's gonna be in that main room, isn't he? He's gonna be in the main room and I'm gonna be fucked out of luck. Oh God, there's the phone ringing and it's just... What if he's gonna be in this room. Why am I going here? Why did I go here? I knew the rabbit would be here. Why did I do that? Ring around the Razy. He peeked on the ball pit. He so noticed me. He so fucking noticed me. Oh my God. How? How did he? Guys, I think he's fucking dumb. What? He picked on the ball pit. No, I do get a reference, don't worry, I get it. Why is this guy on ketamine and where can I get some? What are you on? Get out of here. Get out of here! Don't mind me. I'm just gonna make my way past you, don't mind me. Only place I can think of the dad being is backstage or in this room. That's all I can think of. do I pick up the call?
Hello?
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm not sure if it's the same person working here.
Same 10-year-old.
Honestly, 5 days is a long time for someone
Same
in this
10-year-old.
position, so I'm sure you are doing great.
Thanks.
But as a tradition, if you have decided to move on to other things, just make sure that you pass on the important notes to the next person to help them settle in, like what I did for you.
You didn't help me settle
It
in.
sure helps a lot.
What? Oh. Is that all? It's probably the secret room. Well, I don't remember how to get there, and so I'm gonna dilly-dally and have shenanigans. Oh my god. Is he in the arcade? Is he in the entrance hall? Is he in party hallway? That's such a... Okay. I heard a muffled scream in the storage. I don't like that. Do not like that one bit. Okay, let's go find my dad or something. The only way I don't know how to get there is because the animatronics were blocking the stage. I'm seeing by something. So I think I'm gonna do a wraparound. Wraparound. That's not gonna work. Yeah, that's... That did not work. Okay. Is he in the party room? Oh, go check. I'm back! I'm back in the fucking prison again! Where's Hatsune Miku? Oh, bald guy? Where's the bald guy? Bald guy? Bald guy? Where's the bald? There's the bald guy! Bro's hungry, my god. Alright, give me the key. Give me the key. Give me... Oh. Dead. My bad, guys! My bad. Dead as hell. My bad! Calling Team Willikers every time I die is fucking crazy. Jeff, give me the key! Flint Lockwood! Flint Lockwood! Give me the key! Thank you! Okay. What key do I not have? I have like 3 different keys to this place. I have the ballroom key now, I have the key to the arcade, and I have the key to the basement. There's no basement in this building. I haven't seen it. There's no basement in this building. Why do I have a basement key? Oh, I forgot about this. No! Do I get a reference this time? I do get a reference. No! Koichi Walkers! What if I just, like, chill here? What now, rabbit? Yeah, walk on past. Walk on past. There you go. There you go. See, why would you circle this one table? If you're chasing me, you are just wasting your own time. Not a very thought out strategy, though. Okay, fuck off. Or are they still on the stage? They're on the stage, though. How? There's a vent back there, but I don't. GG's, you're gonna die. I'm alive! They're gonna. Let's wait for them to get out of the room before I do it. Because there's a vent back here. I just don't remember how to get back here. Oh, it's on your head. Hey, can you guys, like, let me through, please? Alright, fine, fuck you. Okay, I need to find the secret vent into that room, but I don't know what the secret vent is. It's not that. I don't know why I checked that. For the sake of it, I guess. This can't be it, because this leads us back to the office, but I might as well check. Yep. Office, that's not what I want. Maybe it's the arcade? I don't remember the layout of this game, like, at all, because I'm not playing so long. Is there? I'm in! I'm gonna come out and sign fuck up. I'm gay. God, what other room has a vent? What other room has a vent? Oh, let's go. So it kind of was the party room, I think. It kind of was the party. It was the party room. What? Wasn't entirely wrong. Okay. Where is my father? Where's my? I will go report to my. Where did all these things come from? Oh, shit. Well, it looks like there's something shoved inside one of them. That's gonna be my dad. Go away! Party room key card. There's a locked party room? Am I stupid? Am I stupid? Am I stupid? I was right. Let's go, guys! I actually feel really stupid. No, because I thought you meant the hallway, and I had forgotten that if there's a hallway, there's gonna be a party room. So I was like, what? How was he in the hallway? Ow. Don't mind me. Alright, find my father. I feel like Draco Malfoy every time I say my father. Why have to say it like that time? Yeah, in the party room, the door to the left is locked. You know, okay, in my defense, I haven't played this game in over a year. Oh god. I, like, fully forgot that, so my bad. That's fair, that's fair. Can this guy go away, please? Go away, get off my tail. Get off my ass. Don't come near her, that's not what I said, you deaf motherfucker! Go away, please. Go away, please. Please get out of my sight. Go away. Go away. Yeah, thank you. No, wait. I accidentally went back. That's the wrong key. Okay. Let's get to my dad, who it sounds like he is screaming and crying. Oh, it's the girl? From when I watched a year ago. That's so real, though. I made it a goal to not watch anyone play this because I wanted to play it, so I haven't seen any. Let me out of here, you stupid rabbit! Hey, you alright? You're not my dad! I was talking by some strange rabbit. Can you find a way to get me out? I'll find something. I have a key card! I have a key card, you dumb bitch! That made a sound. Oh no. A long time ago. You're a different girl! Wait! Thank you. I thought I was done for. Before you get out of here, I'm trying. I don't care about your trauma. Where's my father? Have you seen him? No, I haven't seen anyone else. But I've been hearing weird noises coming through the vent in here. I definitely heard a man mumbling and snoring. Oh man, it's gotta be him. I think you're clear to run straight to the exit. Just be careful. Okay. Good luck. That's not running, dumbass! Hurry up! You better win then. I'm gonna hope so. I'm gonna hope I win. Okay, there's a horn. Is this a sound cue or something I can pick up? It's a sound cue. Got it. I'm gonna have to use that. Oh. What's that? A photo? Looks like it's pretty scratched up. What's the photo? What's the photo? That's a wallet. Not my wallet. No. An odd photo of two men inside a strange office. This is somewhere in Freddy's. Oh, I see. Where's my dad? Give me my dad. Give me. Oh, hey, Dad. I'm just gonna come here with you. Dad, you're alive. Bro, it'd be really funny if he's just asleep. Look at the photo. I did. Hey, Dad. Are you my dad? You my dad. Sounds like something he's trying to get in. I better hide. And your dad shouldn't hide? Hello? Oh, wait. I hide in the vent. It's William Henry. I knew it! Hello, bitch. Hello, fuckwad. Get away from my dad. Oh, yes. My dad's just asleep or some shit. He's just passed the fuck out. No! You don't take him away again! So I have to follow him, don't I? That's great. Great, the bear is out there! Okay, so I gotta go around. Get murdered. Oh no. Okay, I gotta go around. Get to my dad. And I forget where he takes my dad. I don't remember this part of the game where I have to get my dad. I think I just gotta get him and we book it out here, but it's not gonna be the same in this. I don't know where that room was either. I'm gonna just head to the security office and hope that has hints. Because that, ideally, is like an important room or whatever, but it's not crazy. Okay. Sound cue. Can I get a hint? Can I get a hint? I think it would be a very perfect gift for Christmas. Okay. I'm gonna shut up now. No hints. This is getting me fucking nothing. That's great. Where's my father? Where's... No, but like, why'd they just strip my down of like his things? They just kind of took all his shit. Why'd I... Fuck, I'm gonna go in the hall. Really bad idea, but I'm gonna do it. Oh, and they're still there, so I'm gonna have to get a vent. I have to vent all the way there. Okay. He just cooks my dad into a pizza. Serves him to kid. Kid? Singular?
Hi, kid, are you out? Oh my god! Baby!
Okay, I'm gonna head to backstage, because that's probably where he's gonna be. Because it's blocked off and whatnot, and yada yada. Never mind, he's not back there. The door's locked. Of course he is. Do I not have... I have like 10 different... I have like 10 different keys. Let me in there. Sorry. Why is everything fucking locked in this building? Where am I meant to get something? I have a tradable item, so it's probably a tradable item. I'm gonna check if there's any updates here. Oh! So I'll be over soon, this will. I'll be over soon, this will. I'll be over soon, this will. I'll be over soon! I think I'm going a little insane, guys. I think I'm going a little bit crazy. I'm going a bit crazy. Okay. You're my dad. Boogie, boogie, boogie. Can I just, like, shut off the power? That'll at least get these guys out of the way so I can actually use the goddamn stage. Okay, where would you take it? Maybe the front? I don't want to think the, ball pit. It might be the ball pit, but that seems like too easy. That seems too fucking easy for my dad to be passed out, but it is the final night. So I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, hi, Sushi! Oh, you're here to get some food, pretty kitty.
Sorry. Why did I go this way and not the vent? What am I on it? We switched out Roxy for Sushi. It's sushi time. It's my baby, my little girl. Happen again, so he might be in here because it's like a... Oh my god, shaken baby syndrome, but not. What the shit? Oh, I pressed the wrong button! I pressed G instead of F! You're kidding me! Dad, get out of here! I just kind of dragged him in. Did you take my arm? Oh, hang yourself! Hang yourself, bitch! Hang yourself! Die! Ugh, I'm an ugly kid. Dude, that can end in serve, dude. That's so fair. I might have been in the game before you come back. Depending on... Oh! He's dead! Let's fucking... Hi, Roxy! What the hell? Let's go, he's fucking dead! So is Dad. Dad! Dad! Wake the fuck up! No, not dead! Please don't be dead! You saw his eyes open. Of course he's not dead, dumbass. What the? I don't know what voice I gave you. What the heck is that thing? What happened? Oswald. Not even Ozzy. Oswald. So, I hid in the ballpark to play... I hid in the ball pit to play a prank on you, which I shouldn't have done. You came to look for me and slipped on a ball. Must have hit your head pretty hard when you fell. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to use your hand. Stop lying. But you don't think he's gonna question the giant fucking animatronic hung behind us? Accept your apology, Oz, but right, you shouldn't have done that. He doesn't question the giant animatronic that wasn't there before. Let's get out of here. You and I are beat up pretty good, Oz. What happened? You don't remember anything? Look through this massive lump on my noggin. Did my dad get a concussion? No. Oh. I was mad at you for being late to pick me up again. So I decided to hide from you to make you feel as annoyed as I was. You slipped on a ball and got knocked out. I'm sorry, Dad. There's so much more you're skipping over! Oh, Oz. I'm the one who's sorry. Things haven't been fair to you at all lately, and it's up to me and your mom to keep you happy. Yeah, keep me happy. What happened to my sleeve? I feel like my sleeve looks off. What? Okay, whatever. No, I don't want to open my files. I pressed the wrong thing. Go away. I certainly haven't lived up to my end of the bargain ever since the milk closed, so... I think it's time your mom and I talked about moving somewhere better. For all of us. Even Grandma. I'm sure there's industrial grade bubble wrap out there just for her. Really? Really. Now let's go get you patched up. Dad. There's so much shit. By the way, I think I may be suspended from school. What the fuck did I do at school? I beat it. What? What the fuck did I do at school? 2-star ending. Jeff, I beat it! Yay! Yay, I beat the game! Woo! It only took me, what, 2 streams? Yay! I think 2. Okay, so a few... Hello? Hello? Okay, I live... I exist. I'm not dead. I beat a game for once, guys! I abandoned a game and then came back and beat it. Are we proud of me? Are we proud of me, guys? Your first game beat on stream. Shut up. What's worse is I was here. No, actually, second game, I beat a really short one. I beat a really short one when I didn't have a game to play. So, you're wrong. Ha! What game did I beat that was super short? What game? Rental. I beat Rental, but it was a game that I completed in one stream, so. This is my first more than one stream finished game. Okay, I win! I win! Oh god. No, because like, I don't remember, what did I do at the school to get suspended? Is it just because I didn't show up? What did I do to get suspended? Why am I suspended? Legal team, oh god. It'd be really funny just to play this game in German. You'd be like, what translations are funny? That'd be really fun. That'd be fun. I don't know. I beat the game, yay! Let's go. I don't know what to say, I'm waiting for the credits to finish. Thank you for playing. Congrats, thank you, I'm so proud, you should not, that's a really... Hello? Hello? Oh, let's go, I was here. New music unlocked. Jeff's Pizza Dining Hall, Freddy Fazbear's Dining Hall. You finally beat it. It's my second game beat. I've beaten a game before, asshole. Oh, hi, Jeff. Aw. That kid better not have gone hurt in there. Oh. To stream microfaxing for an SMP and not dying. Is that what we're doing now? Oh. Bye, Jeff! Bye, Jeff! Yay, I lived! I don't want to start it, I beat the game. I don't want to start it, I beat the game. What? Yay! You barely stream, so it feels like the first. But shut up. Extras. Oh, and I can see them. Let's fucking go, that's nice. We didn't get to see Foxy. That is... whatever. No! No! Ah! No! 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 Okay. my inventory. No, because, like, there was a debate. Oh, so I might have ransacked the office, the principal's office, I guess. Okay. Hello, my name is Dad. Hello, my name is Dad. Yep. Yep, my name's Dad. No, yeah, this game didn't really have Foxy. Oh, I can see the jump scares. Okay, game over. Freddy suit, wardrobe, vent, ball pit. Oh, he did tear my arm off. Fuck this game, I hate it. Stupid no Foxy. No, Foxy's cool. Why didn't they give us Foxy? Game over, press enter. I don't want to open the jump scares. I'm not. Okay. Alt music. Oh. Hat game, what the? Music Man! That was too loud. That was definitely too loud. Why is my VPN yelling at me? What did I do? Okay. Okay, everything's fine. Everything is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. Music Man! It's all my fault. Oh god, you jam it out. I don't know why this is just kind of funny. Okay. Yay! What achievements did I get? I got into the pit. It's me. I hear you. I tripped over 20 times. I kicked a plastic ball into a door frame. Okay. Hello. Okay. I couldn't find where to hunk. I pet the cat! Left Dad behind. Oh. Couldn't caught. Dang. So there's a good amount of stuff I could. There's like, if I ever want to replay this game, which I don't know if that's gonna ever happen. There's a lot. There's like a lot of streams I can go for, or a good few. That's nice. But guys, I finally beat FNAF into the pit. Yay! I don't know if I end stream there or if I do something else because I'm not fully drained. But I did my goal. I don't know what to do. I feel lost, like a lost child. I don't know. But I beat a game. Yay! It's a moment in history. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. I'd say I could ask you, the chat. It is one person here. Get the third star. Dad, bro. I don't wanna. This shit took me 2 streams already. That'll happen later, if at all. We can maybe stream tomorrow. I mean, I'm not against it. I do have stage 2 tomorrow, I do believe, though. I'm not against it, if you wanna... So I'm assuming I should just end it with... what'd I do? I'm assuming I should just end it here, because I beat the game. That's pretty good, yeah, I don't actually have a finishing screen, and I would go to my cat screen that I have, but I need to... I'll see when I go ahead and play Minecraft Survival. I'm down for playing some Minecraft, but I don't feel like starting a new world for when I stream right now. And I feel like it'll be really awkward playing Minecraft alone. Oh god. Because if you want to change, you might feel more inclined to stream tomorrow. No, I get that. I don't know. I'm not used to streaming. You stream more than me. What's your advice? What would you prefer? What's your choice? I don't know. Because I do want to play some Minecraft, but I'm like, I don't want to risk being too drained to do stuff and whatever. I'm just happy I beat my objective. I beat my goal. The SMP says, yeah, Tomorrow? I thought it was like later than tomorrow. Yeah, Saturday. I didn't think it was tomorrow. Hello? Speaking of, I don't know if I should ask this. It's not anything spoilery. Would it be better for me to to stream me playing it with my like stuff on screen, or just record it? Okay, and for now, fair. I can ask you later. All right. Yay! Yippee! I beat the game. I'm happy. Okay. I'm just gonna say guys, because even though it's one of you, I'm eventually gonna post on YouTube. Congrats. Yippee! I beat a game! Woohoo! Okay. Oh god. Alright. This is like my second time being a full game on stream, so I'm actually kind of happy. But yeah, this is me playing FNAF Into the Pit. That was my goal for the stream. What do you mean both? What do you mean both? What? What do you mean both? What? What did I do? What does both mean? Wait. What does both mean? Okay, hold up. Alright, that's fair. But yeah, I'm gonna end the streams here. I did my goal. I did what I needed to do. This will Yay! I'm gonna try and remember to put this on my YouTube as a VOD now, if not, like, right after. If not, it'll be put up at some point. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. I finished it. Yippee! I'd never have a good outro. Or, wait, I didn't. Anyways. Said that for me. That's fair. Anyways, I will end this here. W, sure. Thank you. I will end this here. Let's go. Love machine. I think for majority of the stream, it's just you in chat, and that's gonna be really funny to look back at. I'm gonna end this here. I finally beat this game, so yippee. I hope that everyone who does watch this, if anyone watches after this is recorded, has a good night or day, depending on the time zone. And yeah.